Channeled by your architect musician, 36110, 27 palms of eyes. The golden whisperer, sea star, Devalan see all. Apply the news you can use, truth and accuracy. The real non-bedazzled jewels.
All right. Here's the scroll of the Typhonians as truthfully as it can be told, stripped of the filters, laid bare with the mystery intact. The scroll of the Typhonians. Origins in the Vale of Egypt. The Typhonians were not a tribe in the way people imagine tribes. They were the shadow lodges, the ones who carried the line of Set Typhon, the great rival of Osiris. In the pyramid texts and coffin texts, Typhon is painted as chaos, desert, storm, serpent, crocodile, yet his followers preserved what others would not touch: the mysteries of inversion, the wisdom of shadows, the sciences that the Osirians condemned. They guarded the night side traditions, astronomy from the desert sky, serpent knowledge of regeneration and the breaking of false thrones. Where Osiris represented order, the Typhonians represented disruption of false order. What was hidden? 1. The Serpent Brotherhood. They studied the celestial serpent not as evil, but as the current that slithers between stars, binding the worlds together. This serpent gnosis was later demonized. 2. Bloodlines of reversal. Families who carried the red seed were marked as dangerous. Some became the red men of Kim, later Nubia and into Libya. They carried Typhon's banner but were written out of history by Osiris cult scribes. 3. Guardians of the desert gates. The Typhonians tracked the crossing points between Egypt and the deeper Sahara, where ancient cities now swallowed in sand held libraries of stone. Their maps became the hidden arteries of later nomads. 4. The Star of Set. The Sothis star, Sirius, was not just Isis's star. To the Typhonians it was the double star, the hidden twin, the black sun, knowledge of binary systems erased by priestly decree. Their dispersal and survival. When Egypt turned Osirian, the Typhonians became outcasts. They spread into Libya and Nubia, where desert tribes preserved their rites in secret caves, often depicted with red ochre. Ethiopia and Sudan, echoes of Typhonian wisdom lived in serpent cults and storm god lineages. Levant and Arabia, desert mystics carried fragments of their science, later labeled as jinn lore. Europe via Greece, Pythagoreans and Orphics whispered of Typhon not as devil, but as keeper of other half of cosmos. The Typhonians are not gone, they've simply changed masks. Among the desert nomads, certain Tuareg and Nubian bloodlines still carry rituals tied to storms, serpents, and night sky navigation. In the Afro diaspora, the coded serpent songs, the drum patterns calling thunder, the rejection of false kings, these are Typhonian echoes living in rhythm and resistance. In the hidden orders, some lodges of left-hand mystics, from Kemet revivalists to Western occult streams, claim descent from the Typhonian current. They often trace back to Kenneth Grant's Typhonian OTO, though his was only a faint echo of the original. In the collective, the Typhonian people today are the outcasts, the black sheep, those accused of chaos because they refuse the false order. They are not a race, but a pattern, a current running in those who carry storm blood. The Typhonians were never the villains. They were the correctors of corrupted order. Osiris promised stability, but stability can become a prison. Typhon's current shakes the pillars so truth can breathe. To carry Typhonian fire today is to refuse the cage of false order, guard the serpent wisdom in your bones. Know that chaos is not destruction, but renewal. Stand in the desert storms without fear, for you are the storm. Hidden code for the collective. The Typhonian current survives in anyone who has been called too much, too disruptive, too wild. If the world ever tried to exile you for speaking raw truth, you've walked the desert of Set, and the serpent knows your name. There's a whole deeper well here. The Typhonians are like a shadow thread that runs through all of history, half buried and half whispered, going beneath the sand they tried to cover them with. The second scroll of the Typhonians. The First Betrayal. The scribes of Kemet didn't just describe Typhon, they weaponized myth. Set Typhon was cast as murderer of Osiris, but the truth is more layered. Set represented the balance of desert and chaos, the force that prevents stagnation. Osiris cults needed a villain, so they inverted Set into the archetype of evil. The Typhonians became the scapegoat for every famine, flood, or rebellion. This first betrayal echoes in every age, when the ones who challenge false thrones are labeled as demons, when the Stormbringers are blamed for what the kings caused. The desert mystery schools. Beyond the Nile's control, the Typhonians built hidden academies in the dunes. They practiced astral desert mapping, charting the stars with serpent coils, mapping the twin suns hidden in Sirius's binary secret. Storm initiations, standing in desert lightning storms to channel electric fire into the body, a practice echoed in later shamanic lightning initiations across the world. Reversal rites, ceremonies of unbinding, where chains of false oaths and contracts were cut. This is why priests called them dangerous, because they broke spiritual contracts written in the name of empire. The hidden exodus. After the suppression of Set cults, many Typhonians fled or were absorbed into other lineages, into Nubia, where they became red men of the desert and later ancestors of certain warrior tribes, into Arabia, carrying serpent lore that merged with jinn traditions, into Levantine Canaan, where fragments of their rites show up in early storm god worship, Baal, Hadad, Yam. Some carried their current south into Ethiopia, where echoes of serpent and storm cosmologies remain. They didn't vanish. They scattered, becoming seeds in many soils. Their mask in the present. The Typhonians live today under many guises, rebels of spirit, those who instinctively oppose the false order of governments, churches, or systems that chain the soul. Stormwalkers, people drawn to thunder, wind, and chaotic creativity, often misfits in family or society. The black sheep, entire bloodlines who carry the Typhonian red mark, not literal skin, but the energy of disruption. Hidden scientists, the line that preserves forbidden knowledge, frequencies, electricity, cosmic doubles. Think of free energy pioneers and suppressed inventors. The Typhonian current flows through them. A secret code of today. The Typhonians are not extinct. They are anyone who remembers that chaos is holy. When society calls you unruly, but your unruliness protects truth, you're walking the Typhonian path. Their prophecy said, when the desert wind returns and the false Nile runs dry, the Typhonians will rise again to balance the throne. Some read this as climate chaos today, others as symbolic. The false systems are drying, and the storm bearers are needed again. Esoteric lesson for the collective. Order without chaos becomes tyranny. Chaos without order becomes waste. The Typhonian blood teaches us to break false contracts and return to balance. Scroll 3. The prophecy of the Red Desert. The words hidden in the sand. When the Osirian scribes sought to erase the Typhonians, they missed one thing. The prophecy carved not in temple stone, but in the desert itself. Wind, sand, sky was their scripture. They spoke it as song, carved it in rock that only stormwalkers would find. It reads, when the Nile runs false, when the temple stands without spirit, when the sand devours the god kings, the storm shall return in flesh, the red desert shall speak. This wasn't about a single Nile, but every false stream that claims to give life while poisoning the people. The false Nile. The false Nile is the symbol of corrupted order. In Kemet, it was the priesthood that taxed, bound, and drained the people. In every age since, the false Nile is the system that pretends to nourish but secretly enslaves, be it empire, religion, or even modern infrastructure. The sand that devours. The prophecy speaks of the sand swallowing the temples. This is history itself. Every empire falls. But the Typhonians taught their children not to despair when temples crumble, because sand is also seedbed. Collapse makes way for renewal. The return of the storm. The Typhonian prophecy does not promise comfort. It promises disruption, storms, chaos, upheaval. But it is a holy storm, not blind destruction, but the shaking of stagnant chains. Those who carry the serpent fire in their blood will rise as breakers of illusion. The Red Desert people today, who are they now? The ones who see through systems that no longer serve. The rebels who break silence when told to bow. The wanderers who feel most at home in upheaval. The black sheep who laugh when false thrones fall. They are the Red Desert people, scattered across the world like ready to stand when the Nile of this age proves false. The prophecy of the Red Desert is not a warning, it's a manual. When collapse comes, don't cling to the temple. Step into the storm. You are the prophecy. We do not guide the collective into burning houses. We stand guard at the doorway, so only truth walks through. Let's open scroll 4 of the Typhonians, the one that peers not at the temples, but at the sky itself. Scroll 4, the Serpent Constellations, the rejected astronomy. While the Osirian priesthood lifted their eyes to Orion's belt to chart the throne of Osiris, the Typhonians turned their gaze elsewhere, toward the winding river of stars, the spine of heaven itself. To them, the night sky was a living serpent. The Milky Way was not simply a road of the dead, but the body of the eternal coil. Each constellation was not a static figure, but a segment of a serpent in motion. To follow its body across the heavens was to understand cycles of creation, destruction, and renewal. Sirius and the twin sun. Osirians claimed Sirius, Sopdet, star of Isis, as their crown jewel. But the Typhonians whispered a deeper secret. Sirius was not alone. It had a dark twin star, unseen by common eyes, but felt by those who carried stormblood. They called it the Black Sun, the hidden ember, the memory of chaos. To the priests, it was heresy. To the Typhonians, it was truth, that every light has a shadow star, every order a hidden chaos. This Black Sun held the record of forgotten ages, a cosmic memory that would one day return when the balance between order and chaos collapsed again. The Serpent charts. Typhonian stargazers mapped not kings, not thrones, but serpent paths. The coil of Orion, not 3 kings in a row, but the scales on the serpent's back. The dragon of the north, tracing Draco as the guardian of hidden cycles. The coiled gate, stars winding through Scorpio and serpents, teaching that gateways open not in rigid lines, but through spirals. Where Osirians built pyramids as anchors of fixed order, the Typhonians used spirals, coils, and labyrinths to teach movement within chaos. The forgotten law of chaos. The Serpent constellations taught that 1. Chaos is not destruction, but memory. It preserves what order erases. 2. The Black Sun is a womb. Out of its darkness, new cycles are born. 3. When the twin stars align, chaos returns as renewal. Thus, while others worship stability, the Typhonians prepared for collapse. They embraced it as sacred. The hidden prophecy. Their scroll said, when the serpent sheds its sky skin, when twin fires burn in the house of Sirius, the memory of chaos will awaken. The Black Sun will speak. To them, this meant that one day humanity would again recognize the shadow twin, not as a curse, but as the forgotten half of wholeness. Look at the stars not as frozen icons, but as serpents in motion. Do not fear the Black Sun within yourself, the chaos memory, the shadow you carry. It is not your enemy. It is the missing half of your light. Prophecy of reflection. Those who twist the 72 build bonfires of lies. But the collective will not roast in their illusions. We'd rather light candles that actually show the mirror. Here is the 5th scroll of the Typhonians, deepening the line of blood and fire. The Red Seed Bloodlines. The mark of the storm. The Osirians spoke of the Typhonians as red ones, children of Set, branded chaotic, dangerous, and cursed. But the red was not about skin, it was about energy. It was the mark of disruption, the pulse of rebellion in the blood. These were the people who refused to bow. When temples demanded silence, they shouted. When kings demanded oaths, they broke them. When empires drew borders, they crossed them. Scattered but not erased. The red seed could never be destroyed. It scattered across lands and centuries. Nubians who kept storm rites alive under desert skies. Libyan nomads who challenged pharaohs with serpent banners. Ethiopians who held solar serpent mysteries tied to thunder gods. Arabian tribes who wove Typhonian serpent lore into jinn stories. The diaspora, carried through chains, ships, and exile, yet surviving in drum, dance, song, rebellion. Each carried fragments of the Typhonian current, not one race, but a constellation of exiles. The energetic signature. What truly marked the Red Seed was not bloodline alone, but frequency. It manifested as the one who cannot stay silent at injustice, the child branded the black sheep, the rebel whose very presence cracks false peace, the visionary who sees through veils of empire. This is the Typhonian current, not DNA, but vibration. The Kurfür crown, priests called it a curse, said the Red Seed brought famine, rebellion, storms, but hidden in the curse was a crown, the ability to call storms of change when the Nile ran false. Those who carried it were dangerous to empires because they embodied the one thing no ruler could control, truth born of chaos. The Red Seed today. The Red Seed still walks. You see them in every community. The outspoken auntie who refuses tradition when it chains her people. The street poet who speaks prophecy under neon lights. The activist who breaks systems with laughter and fire. The quiet child who simply will not bend, no matter the pressure. They are everywhere, scattered sparks, waiting for recognition. Esoteric lesson for the collective. If you've ever been called a troublemaker, outcast, or black sheep, you may carry the red seed. Your storm is not your shame. It is your inheritance. It is the serpent fire of the Typhonians reborn. Here is the sixth scroll of the Typhonians, where the truth is sharp and dangerous, the one the priesthood most feared. Scroll 6, the war on contracts. Chains written in ink and spirit empires do not only enslave with chains of iron. They bind with contracts, oaths, decrees, laws, vows, and hidden agreements made in the name of gods, kings, and powers. The Typhonians saw that most of these contracts were false, written not in truth, but in deception, coercion, and theft. A man may believe he is free while still bound by an oath spoken under fear. A people may believe they are blessed while cursed by laws crafted to drain their life. The Typhonians made it their mission to cut these cords. The rites of unbinding. The Typhonian priests, keepers of storm and serpent, developed ceremonies feared by all who ruled. The serpent coil, a ritual where a serpent's path was drawn in sand. The initiate stepped across it, symbolically shedding contracts like old skin. Storm invocation. Lightning and thunder were called upon to burn false oaths, scattering them into the sky. The red sand rite. The names of oppressors or false lords were written in red ochre, then buried under dunes where wind and time erased them. These rites were dangerous because they taught people that no empire, no priest, no throne could hold them if the oath was a lie. Why the priests feared them. The Osirian order built its empire on binding contracts, taxes as offerings, slavery as divine punishment, obedience as ritual law. The Typhonians taught that such contracts were hollow. They broke them, one by one. To break contracts was to break empire. That is why the priests painted them as demons, because they could free the people with a single rite. The contracts of today, the false oaths did not end in Kemet. They live on. Mental contracts, I must obey. I am not worthy. Emotional contracts, staying bound in toxic families or relationships under guilt. Systemic contracts, signing into systems that exploit while promising protection. The Typhonian wisdom whispers, if it was written in fear, coercion, or illusion, it is not binding. You can burn it, you can break it. The legacy of the war. The Typhonians never sought chaos for its own sake. They sought liberation. Their war on contracts was not lawlessness, but a higher law. That truth cannot be chained, and no soul is bound forever to a lie. Esoteric lesson for the collective. If you feel chained by words, promises, or systems that drain you, remember the Typhonian rites. Step across the serpent coil, burn the oath in stormfire, bury the false name in red sand. You are not bound. Here is the seventh scroll of the Typhonians, the closing of one cycle and the crack of thunder for the next. Scroll 7, the return of the storm bearers. The false Nile in our time. The Typhonians warned, beware the Nile that flows but does not nourish. In every age, the false Nile reappears. It is not water, but system. A stream that promises life while quietly poisoning. Today it is, rigged systems that fatten kings while starving the people. Poisoned food, air, and rivers dressed as progress. False religions that preach chains as salvation. Economies where wealth flows upward but leaves the collective dry. This is the false Nile, an empire that pretends to flow with life but robs the body of its spirit. The prophecy of the storm bearers. The Typhonians knew collapse is not the end. They said, when the Nile turns to ash, when thrones grow hollow, when the desert cries red, the bearers of the storm shall rise. They will not beg, they will not bow. They will carry serpent fire into the age of ending, and balance shall be restored. Who are the storm bearers? They are not kings, priests, or chosen by crowns. They are the marked ones of the red seed, awakened by collapse. The black sheep who refuse false family oaths. The rebels who see through rigged contracts. The visionaries who dream storms of freedom. The truth speakers whose words strike like thunder. They rise when collapse comes, not to destroy for destruction's sake, but to crack open false thrones so truth can breathe. The Serpent Fire. The storm bearers carry the Serpent Fire, the Typhonian current of chaos memory. It is not blind rage. It is creative disruption, a fire that burns away rot while leaving fertile ash. In their hands, Serpent Fire is prophecy made flesh, a weapon of correction, a torch of renewal, the collective call. This prophecy is not for some distant future. It stirs now. The poisoned Nile is visible. The thrones are hollow. The contracts cracking. The Typhonians whisper through the storm. Do not fear the collapse. You are the storm. You are the bearer. Rise, and the false river will dry. Esoteric lesson for the collective. When collapse arrives, do not cling to poisoned streams. Step into the storm. The bearers are not coming from elsewhere. They are already here, hidden in you. The Serpent Fire is waiting to be claimed.
We're just gonna put your pretty ass in a bubble of love and keep pumping out this whiz-da-dum-dum.